Hello and welcome to episode 1021 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Tuesday, March 1st. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing on this wonderful TGFBI Tuesday?
TGFBI Tuesday part's great. We're still not quite at the finish line with the CBA, so, I'm cautiously
hope, though.
optimistic.
There's
There is
hope.
hope. For the first time in a while, it isn't just blind optimism. And of all people to kind of break the story last night, Bob freaking Nightingale, once he was starting to say that things were positive out there, everyone thought the direct opposite would soon happen. Understandably. I mean, dude, catches L's left and right, and he could tell you that it's going to be 85 and sunny, and then I'm breaking out the winter coat at that point. So, I get it. But to his credit, a lot of what he said yesterday was starting to come through, and the finish line is at least in sight. So I'm excited about that. We're talking second baseman today, and we are on a time crunch, so we're going to have to dive right in. But just quick thing on the CBA. You think it gets done today, this week? What's your read after last night's big night?
I think it gets done very soon, whether it's today or tomorrow. And I think we have baseball starting on time, which is amazing because I went from being probably one of the most optimistic people in the industry to super, super pessimistic the last few days. I really didn't think it was going to get done. I thought we were going to miss a month's worth of games. And I was super, super bummed, super pissed. So I do think it gets done. They're so close right now. And, thankfully to the players, because they're the ones who've made the concessions.
Of course.
I kind of feel bad that they've had to kind of make so many concessions, but
those
ultimately,
crazy bootlickers online acting like the players are the problem just drive me nuts.
I mean, I think that is just a loud minority of people.
I don't know, man. I'd like to think that, but
every time I see someone run a poll on like who do you support in this, it's always like 80-90% support the players.
How often have you broken out of the echo chamber that we're in, though, and tried to look at some other stuff? Because I was in some other threads yesterday and just bootlicker extraordinaire.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there. I said last night on the FWFB live stream, or maybe it was on TGFBI pod, but I said somewhere like I think that fans often have like this allegiance to the team, and not to the players, because the players come and go, the team always stays the same. So like I do kind of get it in a way. At the same time, when you realize these guys are multi-billionaires, I retweeted something someone pointed out like that, like I think 13 of the 30 owners inherited their team from their parent. Like these aren't guys who like a lot of these guys aren't like self-made men that
picked
are
them up by the bootstraps. I've used this line a bunch on Twitter, but I think it is apt. These people seem to think that because millionaire and billionaire rhyme, that they're close, and they're light years apart. But anyway, we don't need to get mad about that. There's actually positivity. Here's hoping that things get done. We get spring training going, and we're ready to roll. But we are ready to roll. Talking second baseman. Got some guys that have been covered at other positions. We'll kind of move quickly through them. But let's start at the top. I put two studs. I could have put Trey by himself, but I included our boy, Ozzy Albies, who we see as more of a first rounder. This is something that you kind of ran my way a couple weeks ago, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I can definitely see it. That said, there's still a good bit apart. Trey is the number one overall. I don't know. He's not consensus. There's definitely guys that can get taken number one, but he's up there, very widely regarded, both at second and short, dual eligible. And then Albies there, mostly with an ADP just outside the first round. He goes at the turn, but that means that he's creeping into the first round pretty regularly between the two, right? So you're kind of picking at either end to get them. Do you have a preference with your KDS? We just started up TGFBI. Hopefully, if everything progresses the way we think, a couple weeks we'll be drafting main events and all that. Are you trying more to get Turner at the front or Albies at the back? Doesn't necessarily mean that that's who you want, but those are where you're going to be with your KDS. If you're at the front, you can try to get Turner. If you're at the back, Albies comes more in play. Where have you been going with your KDS lately?
I've been setting it 1 through 15.
Just taking what you get.
Yeah, I want an early pick as early as possible. Landed 8 in TGFBI. Didn't love that landing spot, but
I hate
love the
8, dude. I've
love
had
the
8 a
two.
lot too.
It's funny because last year we are talking about 8 was where I wanted to be, right? Because
Yes, that was your
I could
Turner sweet spot.
yeah, because I could get Turner at 8. I want Turner still, but you need to have one to one or
Maybe
two.
2.
Yeah, 1 or 2 to get him. And I'm fine with Jose Ramirez at 2. So I think if Turner wasn't second base eligible, I think Ramirez would be my number 1 overall player, just because the lack of the depth at third base.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but
We'll
I mean,
get
you just
into the
can't go
next one.
wrong with the speed base and average base that Turner kind of gives you to start off a draft. So, as far as Albies goes, like I said, I believe he is a first round pick. We're starting to see him push into the first round now. I think that he's going to be, by the time we get to like main event drafts at the end of March, we're going to see him like kind of squarely in the first round.
Oh, you don't think it'll go the other way with starting pitchers getting pushed?
I don't know that we're going to see the same starting pitcher push that we've seen in years past.
It always happens. I don't know, man.
Pitching
I'm
is
not.
so deep, and you can't push everything up. You can't push speed up. You can't and
The
starting
closers will get pushed
and
back
closers.
down, though. No, the closers are going to get pushed. The closer market is a direct response to the instability of the market.
And and we also have to remember it's partly due to the fact that draft champions are the most commonly drafted thing right now, because the TGFBI ADP is lower on the closers than like the NFBC draft champions.
And have we done a comparison for the RotoWire OCs that are going to the online championships? Because those are fab, And so I think closers. I don't think we're going to see the insane closer push once we get to main event territory, because things will be stabilized a lot more in the closers pool, and I think that could push Albies down a bit. Which, hey, you and I would love that. You might be right. I'm not saying you're 100% out on that, but I think that we'll see more SPs push up, and that could put him back, in more like the 17 to 20 range, which I'd snap that up, because then if you get a late first, you get Albies on the kickback, and I'm taking that all day long.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's if Albies does drop back down out of the first round, I'll be totally pumped, because I'll take him in the first, and then I'll take whatever starting pitcher makes it back to me in the second. So it's nice to have that kind of option, because I don't like the back end of the draft. But it's nice to have an option like Albies who's going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited about Albies. 30-20 last year, 100 to 100.
And he's like 25.
That's the thing. And it was with a 259 average, which is well below what he's been doing. He's a career 273. He's peaked at 295. So even if you give a little backslide to some of the numbers, with the 30-20, 100, 100, it could be offset by 15, 20 points of average.
Mm-hmm. Which I would take in a heartbeat.
Exactly. And I don't think that either the homers, steals, runs, or ribbies are going to crater. I think you can peel them back and say, okay, he really maximized going 686 plate appearances, but I'm not cratering any of those. 25-year-old, everything's there. I love Albies. So when you said that, again, we were talking about that offline, then we brought that onto that very next show, and it was like, I'm in, and I ended up taking him in the first round of a draft already. So I'm on board with that. Let's move into the guys that are kind of second, third round area here. I call them the established studs. They bring a certain gravitas to your team. They're all dual eligible too, by the way, and they all have a speed component, which is why they live in in those early rounds. Although Baez, by the way, is a little not really third round there. He's more like fourth, fifth. But it's Whit Merrifield, around pick 32. Marcus Simeon, pick 44 on average, and Javier Baez, pick 62 on average. Merrifield, second outfield, and then Simeon and Baez are both second short. With this trio here, how often do you find yourself landing on them? If you don't get Turner Albies, are you interested? Or if you don't get Turner Albies, you kick to one of the next couple groups that we're going to get into. How do you feel about Merrifield, Simeon, Baez?
Yeah, I'm totally interested. I haven't landed on them a ton because I have gotten a good amount of Turner and Albies to start the year. So I'd really hoped that Whit Merrifield would make it to me in the third round of my TGFBI draft. It was not meant to be. They're not necessarily guys I'm targeting but they're definitely guys I'd be happy to end up with. Especially depending on kind of my early build. I went pitcher in the first round TGPI, so I would have loved to land one of these guys. Had to go different directions, but yeah, I think they're
Yeah,
all
you got
super talented.
and then you doubled up on closers too. You have a really interesting build, but I think your offense has survived, or no, more than survived. I really think it's kind of thriving there, despite the fact that you have 4 early pitchers. Whit Merrifield, definitely a compiler, right? He's literally played every game the last 3 seasons, including the tiny season, but then 158 in 2019 too. So you're talking about 4 missed games in the last 4 seasons. Very impressive stuff, but he's going to be 33. I've seen some pushback to him, but I'm looking at the projections and they're still rock solid. Low homer output still. He spiked the 16 in 2019 as a rabbit ball guy, but mostly a low double digit with high 20s, low 30s steals and a good average. And the runs counts are all around high 80s, low 90s. I think he could push 100 if this Royals team gets better. I kind of like Merrifield. I know he's 33 years old, but he's been as much of an iron horse as we can get. We don't see a lot of guys put up 162. He's done it each of the last 2 full seasons. I see some upside with Merrifield, but I think people are kind of getting hung up on the 91 WRC plus and thinking that there's a problem here. But fantasy wise, he does what we need with that speed, batting average, runs scored. He kind of hits a lot of the unheralded categories with the runs scored and the batting average too. Any concerns about Witt at 33, age 33, by the way?
No, I most of the kind of pushback on Merrifield has been, he's old and at some point he's just going to fall off. And yes, that absolutely can happen. He's 34, speed can fall off.
But there's nothing to say.
But yeah, there's nothing in his profile that says it's going to happen. And we know the Royals like to run. We know that he's going to hit near the top of that lineup every day because it's not a packed lineup.
And because he's good, I think. And he did have a 317 OBP, but I think they trust him. He's one of these guys that, even in spite of the numbers, 317 OBP is not great. Alcides Escobar got to lead off forever. Whit Merrifield's better than Alcides Escobar. I'll just say that.
They let Mondesi hit up high with his, 250.
He's electric though. They know that they can, get something better there. But yeah, so you're not.
And he's a really good defensive player too. Can play 2 positions for that team. So I have no fear in drafting Merrifield. I don't know that I've gotten him this year, but it's usually because I'm hitting starting pitcher in that kind of 2nd, 3rd round area where he's going. But I'm not afraid to draft him at all.
I'm not either, and I'll be interested to see if I do land on him at any point with Whit Merrifield. Marcus Simeon, we've talked a bit about. He's going to Texas. That park is not great. He had the dominant season, 45 and 15 last year. Talk about another iron horse, by the way. He has a $162 in each of the last 2 full seasons, 159 back in 2018. He did miss a week of the 2020 season, but dude goes out there and plays. One of the bigger pushbacks I see when people bring up the Texas issue, and I brought up the Texas Stadium as well, and I've even countered myself here and said, well, he did rake in Oakland, though. It's not like Toronto made him out of thin air with this amazing season that he had last year. He went 33 and 92 with the RBIs back in 2019. The issue, though, is the compelling. He does seem to need, or not issue, but he does need the volume to be there to kind of reach these lofty goals. What kind of projection do you see out of Simeon this year? I'm seeing 30-10 with a 260 average and 80-something ribbies, 90-something runs as kind of the general consensus on projections. Do you come out around that kind of makes him go back to Oakland with a big runs cut? He scored 123 that year, and they got him down to low 90s. Or do you see something different than that from Simeon this year?
I could see like a 30-15 type of year, maybe even more stolen bases, because the Rangers do like to run quite a bit, and he's going to get on top of that lineup. I mean, he's definitely going to lose some of those runs and RBIs being in Texas. It's just it's not a good team, even with their additions. And losing Josh Young for the season's not going to help either. Yeah, maybe they're a team that gets in on like a short term, free agent replacement. And they're going to have Young gone for the year, and they can bolster third base. Off the top of my head, I can't think of who's still available.
I got you. I'll find somebody while you're talking.
But ultimately, I think
probably be like a VR type more so because Bryant's the best.
VR would be an amazing guy. He's not going to help. He's not going to help Simeon, but
we know how great he is when a bad team just lets him do his thing.
Rangers like to run.
That's what I'm saying. Just put him in the lineup. Maybe it's another Baltimore-Milwaukee situation.
And that's perfect because if and when Young is ready to come back, he can just bounce around.
Exactly. So even if they got him on like a 2-year deal, next year he could just be utility. So that might be the fit for them. It's not high cost either. They're not going to go for Chris Bryant. Obviously, that's more of a premium pickup. But yeah, so with Simeon, do you think that this is a fair price at 44? That's properly pricing in Texas concern.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think we saw for a little bit his price drop below that. And I think that was a little bit of an overreaction. I think there's a course correction going on, and he's starting to get back into the third round. If he's in the fourth round, I'm likely going to take him. I don't know that I'm going to pull the trigger often in the third, but he's a compiler, and I think we often use that as a bad thing, and it's not. I mean, any guy who can get 700 plate appearances is a guy I want on my team because he's just gonna rack up stats for you. They may not be like sexy, crazy, upside or anything, but
But with Simeon, it is because the last 2 years that the 2 full seasons have been excellent. He did compile in 2018, and it was a 15-14 season with 70 ribbies and 89 runs. But even that wasn't a disaster season. If that's kind of the downside you got this year, you wouldn't necessarily be thrilled with that at pick 44, but it's not crazy. So if Simeon continues to stay healthy, you're not going to crater your team. There's just no real shot of that.
Someone on my live stream last night for Friends Fantasy Benefits, I think it was Tim Canuck, said this, that he looked at every single one of the home runs that Simeon hit, and they would have gone out of every single ballpark in the American League West. So while those American League West stadiums aren't great necessarily, I don't know that he's going to be as hurt as many people are thinking. So
again, he was in Oakland, doing his thing.
The worst place to hit in baseball.
Yeah, so I really think that I don't want to be too worried about him because I did have some concerns, and I have pushed back on myself and realized, you know what? I think I'm more in on Simeon than I thought. I do push, I do give a little bit of a downgrade to first year on a big new contract. Definitely something that I do subscribe to. That's smart system from Rick and Glenn. That's one of their main tenets, and I agree with that one. But I think the price is fair on Simeon. I can definitely get on board with him. And then the other one is Javier Baez. I think he'll be fine in Detroit. I don't think he's going to be special or anything. I think he'll just be fine. And with the power and speed that he has, he's a fantasy player, a fantasy asset. Are you worried about the park at all for Comerica with him?
No, because Baez has got real manpower. There's certain guys I do worry about park changes or dimension changes within a park, like Mountcastle. And then there are certain guys that just rocket the ball. Baez is one of them.
And he pulls too. He doesn't live in center or anything, which is the real problem area of Comerica. I think he'll be his steady self, high 20s, low 30s steals, and upper teens, low 20s stolen bases. I think the Tigers are going to let him run enough to continue to be a solid fantasy player. And he does go a good bit cheaper there than the other guys at pick 63.
I'll probably end up with Baez more often than I will Merrifield or Simeon.
Totally agree. And second and short there too, so you're still getting the dual eligibility. All right, the core. These are the guys that a lot of folks are going to have as their second baseman. One of these guys here is a deep one. Jose Altuve, Jazz Chisholm Jr., Brandon Lau, Jorge Polanco, Tommy Edmond, Jonathan India, Ketel Marte. First things first, let's just start. Who's your favorite of the group?
I think it's Brandon Lau.
Okay, Brandon Lau picked 79 on average, lost his outfield eligibility from last year. Not too worried about that, just pointing it out. Not really as a negative, just as it was a little tack on there that he could play outfield. But as a second base only, he was a homer and RBI short of 4,100. And I think people might forget that if you didn't have him on your team because he got off to a pretty dreadful start. he had a sub 700 OPS the first 2 months of the season, but sneakily still had 9 homers. And then the rest of the year just popped off and went 7, 6, 9, and 8 for homers in the last 4 months, and wound up 39.99 with a 247 average and 97 runs. Talk to us about your love of Brandon Lau at pick 78.
I had him a little bit lower than I do now to start draft season, and talking with Matty Davis, who's or Matty Wood, as people know him on Twitter, over at FTN. He did exactly what you drafted him for, and he's going later for some reason. I don't understand it. He's completely right. He probably should be going higher than he did last year. He's going almost 2 rounds lower than he did last year. There's power. He chips in some stolen bases. There's no platoon risk with him in Tampa. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's gonna platoon. They can't platoon everywhere, or at every single spot. They don't have 18 or 16 offensive players on the roster. So he's going to play every day. He's going to deliver a ton of power, some chip in stolen bases. And yeah, I mean, 40 home runs from your second baseman is pretty sweet if you got speed taken care of somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. 7 steals, give you a little something, but take that pop at second base and enjoy that with Brandon Lau. I like him a good bit too. Let's talk Altuve, because I find myself landing on him a decent bit. And I think the market's a little sour on him right now. 31.83 last year, 5 steals, 117 runs, pretty underrated there. That's a great runs total. 278 average. I think Altuve is still awesome. And, I think at pick 70, Chisholm, Polanco, Lau, and Altuve go in like a 5-pick range, by the way, or 7-pick range from 72 to 79. They're really tight there. Altuve is the lowest of them. And I'm not sure he's not the best of them, but I think he's every bit as good as the other 3. And I also feel like I'm not projecting this. It's one of these things where I'll buy the projection, but I'm not convinced that he's completely done running either. If he can get healthy again, I think we can get back to double-digit steals. Now, it's been 5, 2 in the 48 games he played of 2020, and then just 6 for 11 back in 124 games of 2019. But there were health concerns there. Again, I get those health concerns coming in, but if he got back into the low double digits, it wouldn't surprise me. I'll take my high 20s, low 30s homers, a ton of runs, a good average in ribbies, and then if I do get some extra steals, that'd be great, but I don't need them for Altuve to be good. Have you been in or out on Altuve this year?
Oh, I'm in, because the batting average is so helpful.
And those runs.
And those runs. I think there's just this leftover lingering hate that he no longer steals 30, 40 bases.
Yeah.
And I think that drives him down. But like, you compare him to a lot of the other second basemen, and he's going to give you amazing power, some chip in stolen bases, and usually a great batting average. Last year, and in 2020, he got unlucky on balls in plays, had like career worst BABIPs.
And even the 278 last year, not killing you by any stretch.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the floor. Like, all the projection systems are like saying that, oh, this is who he is now. He's going to hit 278. I don't buy that. I think that's still the floor. I think, if I were to project him, I'd project him for like 290, knowing that I could probably get 300. Which he, has done regularly throughout his career. So, I've got no problem. It kind of just fits whatever, if you need that kind of build at that point. I think he's a fine pick, especially considering where he's going.
Jorge Polanco broke out last year, had an excellent 33-11 season with 98 ribbies, 97 runs, 269 average. Just a very nice season across the board. Do you buy that breakout? He ended up as the 4th second baseman, another dual eligible guy at second and short. What's he do for an encore here at age 28? I think that's something that people might forget too, or not realize, is that he's still pretty young, 28 years old, firmly in his prime. Is he this guy now for Jorge Polanco, or was this a career year and you're fading it? Where do you come out on Polanco?
I think this is who he is. I think people forget that this is a former top prospect in baseball that had his kind of minor league career derailed because he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs in the minor league. And I mean, this it was a huge breakout season for him. Don't get me wrong. In 2021, where he did have the 33 home runs, stole 11 bases, but the breakout really started in 2019.
True.
And I think the short season really kind of hamstrung him. Like he just
Yes.
never really
Made
got
him very
going.
cheap too.
Yeah, and so like do I expect him to go 33-11 again? No, but I mean I do kind of expect maybe like a 27, 28, 10 type season with a pretty decent batting average. I think he's got pretty good contact skills when he's looking to do that. So I definitely am higher than the market on Polanco. And so he's probably my second favorite out of this tier.
Polanco's 7th among second basemen right now. I actually have him 6th, so I'm barely higher than the market, but I like him, and I like him better than Jazz Chisholm, who is going ahead of him. Jazz Chisholm at 6. I get it, obviously, right? Young player, lots of excitement, power, speed, just very raw, and can be great. I feel like people are paying for the breakout, but it has to kind of happen at this price. I feel like he is 72nd off the board. You say, oh, he went 18-23 last year, 248, 53 ribbies, 70 runs. If I get that again, that's fine. That was the 18th second baseman last year. That is not fine. Like if you're drafting him as 6 and he gives you that, that's a hit. It's not going to kill your team. We talk about stuff that doesn't kill you. And there's 124 games too, so volume was an issue there. He got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But are you familiar with the breakdown of his season too? Because I've heard this, talked about a lot. 4 homers, 9 steals, and a 969 OPS in April. Didn't come close to that the rest of the year. All of his OPS is the rest of the year by month. 705 was the max. They all ranged in the mid 600s to the low 700s. And I can give you the composite here because he got hurt in April 28th, and then returned May 16th. From his return on, Jazz Chisholm went 236, 286, 395 with 14 homers and 14 steals in 422 plate appearances. Is too much being made of that? The 24-year-old stays healthy and pops off? Or are there issues here? Strikes out a lot, doesn't walk much. Bottom line, 24-year-old Jazz Chisholm, is he being overrated? Where do you come out on him?
I don't know that he's being overrated. He's definitely not being underrated. I've taken him in drafts because he's one of the few guys going outside like the top 50 you can actually get stolen bases from. And I think that's what helps drive up his price a little bit. And obviously people are dreaming on, hey, what happens if he gets 600 plate appearances? Can he be a potential 30-30 guy? And I do think that's in the range of outcomes. I don't know that it's going to happen considering his contact profile. And I'd really like to see him start walking again. That's something he did in the minor leagues that we haven't seen in the majors yet. If he falls in a draft, I'm happy to take him. But he's definitely not a guy I'm going into a draft targeting, mostly because it's a volatile profile to begin with. And then you add in, he was injured like 4 times last year. And I don't know if it's too early to tell whether that's going to be a habitual issue, but it's not something I can just ignore. I think some people are going, oh, like if he's healthy this year and gets a full year, like where's the guarantee that he's healthy?
True.
So I think, I think he's a super talented player. I think especially if you like to punt batting average like I do in standalone leagues, it makes a lot of sense because you can punt that batting average and just take those runs in. Or those home runs and stolen bases to the bank. But I also understand like there is some legitimate downside considering his kind of swing and miss.
Yeah, I've got some concerns about Jazz. I'm not really buying in at this price here. And so, he's not really winding up on any of my teams where I have Jazz Chisholm ranked at 13th at the position. Obviously, no shot I'm getting him when he's 6th off the board at the position. And you know what? I'm willing to be wrong. If the breakouts this year, great. I'll be rooting for it because I like the player a lot. It's one of those where it's just not going to be on my team. I just don't have the stomach for it when I like so many other players at second base, including in this group. This group alone gives me enough fruit that I don't need to take Jazz Chisholm, let alone some of the guys I like beyond this. Tommy Edmond. We've seen some pushback on Tommy Edmond from our boy John. MLB Moving Averages has had his great Counterpoint podcast where he's responded to some of our Tommy Edmond stuff. He's concerned about him holding that top spot in the order there with a 308 OBP. Not completely unfounded. I still like Tommy Edmond, though. I think he's not a power blank. He gives you a little something there, which I do like out of a speedster. So he's not just like a pure rabbit. 30 steals last year, 11 homers, 56 ribbies, 91 runs. I do like that despite the 308 OBP. I do feel like, though, if he is trending that low, sub 310, there will be some danger. He does have to kind of push it up beyond where he's at there if he wants to maintain at the top of the order. But at 27, I think they still really like Tommy Edmond as somebody who's an everyday player, makes a ton of contact. I'm still pretty keen on Tommy Edmond for this year. And he's dual eligible as well, second outfield for him.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked on Edmond too. I heard what John said, and I've definitely lowered him a little bit because I think I probably had him a little bit too highly. I also wonder, like, and I'm actually trying to look this up as we're talking, but like, who's the guy that's gonna hit at the top of the batting order if Edmond doesn't? Like, I don't know that. I don't know that.
Sorry. It would require Bader breakout or Carlson. I think those are the only two real candidates, and I don't think either's like super likely. I think it's possible. I love Carlson. You know that. I was hyping him all last year. He's probably the bigger threat, but don't sleep on what Bader did last year with what he was able to do, cutting down his strikeouts. And if there's some realness to that, Bader could be the guy because he has that, he's got the speed. He's got kind of that traditional top of the order profile. And he had a 324 OBP last year. So Bader could be the bigger threat too.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could see it. I question that a little bit, though.
I'm just giving you the names. Like, those are the two.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about Bader or Carlson. And Carlson's probably the bigger threat, especially with his pedigree. And they tried to hit him towards the top a few times last year. It just never really worked out.
I'm thinking that you might be a bit low on Bader. I think you're kind of dismissing him out of hand a little bit. And when we get to outfield, maybe we'll have a deeper discussion on him.
We've had the deeper discussion. I moved him up.
That's right. Oh yeah, well, we'll have to figure out where you moved him up to, because I mean, I don't know. I still think there's a lot of upside there. Yeah,
I think you're a little high in general, and then high on Bader as well.
Went 16-9 in 400 plate appearances. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But I like Edmond quite a bit still, and I think he'll get his speed. I think his prices come down to a reason. 81. I'm fine with that. On average. He can definitely range a bit higher, but a min of 67 says he's not really going too much beyond his ADP there as far as pushing too high. So I'm with it on Edmond. Definitely somebody that we've talked about before. Jonathan India, reigning rookie of the year, had a hell of a season. Very interesting trajectory from him, because he was really lost a lot of favor in the minors because he simply wasn't good. He was putting up some numbers, but a lot of it was age to level issues where it's like, yeah, you should be beating up on people in A ball and rookie ball at age 21. And the scouts just were not impressed by it. His outlook was really coming down despite the numbers. You go look at his minor league numbers. You're like, well, why was anyone down at it? But you read the reports and it made sense. He wasn't really standing out. He was old for his level and there was concerns. Well, he ends up skipping AAA because he missed the 2020 development year. And it did not bother him. He hit the ground running this year. 21 homers, 12 steals, 269 average, 376 OBP is huge. That's why he's able to maintain that top spot. And since he scored 98 runs, drove in 69, which is very nice for Jonathan India. What's he do for an encore? Are you in on the reigning NL Rookie of the Year this year?
I wasn't at the start of the season, but I find myself more and more interested in end up targeting him because he's kind of just a complete player. Like he doesn't have a flashy tool necessarily, but
he doesn't have a dud tool either.
Exactly. He contributes in all 5 categories. I think that I don't see a huge ceiling for him, but I also do feel like he's got a pretty safe floor. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of expecting a repeat of last year, which is totally great.
Yep.
At that spot. Like, especially if you need, you want to keep adding on your speed, but you don't want to take a rabbit. I think it makes a lot of sense. In this draft I'm in right now, I kind of hoped I was going to get him in the eighth round. Didn't work out. He went like right after my pick in the seventh. So, but yeah, I think he's a guy that definitely end up with in a draft or two rest of the way.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I'm gonna just kind of echo all your points there, so I don't need to waste time repeating that on India. I think you're dead on. Firm floor, could just do what he did again last year. I think he eclipses the 100 runs though. I think he had 98 last year. I think that's where he can jump up a little bit because well, we'll see what happens. Obviously, they might lose Castellanos, but
And
I think
it depends on where. It depends on if he's going to continue to hit like super high up in the lineup.
Why wouldn't he?
He probably will. Yeah.
No, he will. Yeah, 100%.
Sure. Yeah,
absolutely. There's not even a question.
A big boost in on base percentage league.
Absolutely.
376 OBP.
Definitely pushed up and takes a lot of walks. Yeah, that's a great call out there. OBP leagues push Jonathan India up. He's even better there. Double-digit walk rates throughout the minors, 11% last year, 376 OBP, like you said. Totally agree there. Let's finish out this tier with Ketel Marte. Now we know the health is the biggest question, right? That's elephant in the room right there. Can he stay healthy? 144 in the breakout season of 2019 when he popped 32 homers. 45 games in the shortened season, but then 90 last year. He was killing it. 14 homers, 139 WRC plus, but only 90 games. Can 28-year-old Ketel Marte stay healthy? Is his price down here as second base outfield at pick 87? Is that low enough to take the risk too and say, you know what, I'll buy this injury concern because the upside is so rich? Where do you come out on Ketel Marte trying to rebound off the injury riddled last year?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big Marte fan, but I've stayed away from the last few seasons because of the injuries. A lot of people told me like, "Hey, you're overinflating it." Unfortunately, I think it's become a reoccurring issue. The price has dropped. I mean, he's no longer a top 50 player in terms of ADP. So, like, I think he's a decent gamble to take if you have a really safe kind of floor injury, profile floor coming into that spot. It's like, so I don't hate it, but he's definitely not going to end up on many of my teams this year, or probably any of my teams, just because I definitely am trying to stay as injury averse as possible. So,
you have some history there.
Yeah, and I mean, I love Marte. I was a big fan of his when he first came into the league. When he was in Seattle, like I always thought like, oh man, this is a guy who's going to turn into like a 20-30 guy. And somehow he turned into a 30-10 guy instead, but
it never runs. He never runs. And like
there is that dream that at some point
I know
that he just takes off.
But to your point with the health, that doesn't create a great outlook for it. In fact, the sprint speed started to come down too, and I always push back on using sprint speed as a guide. And he's a great example of that though, too, because he was always like 75th percentile, ranging as high as 95th percentile. And yet Marte never really steals. 11 is his career high. He had 10 in 2019. It did come down last year. That's what's going to happen when you have hamstring injuries on both hammies. He had a strained hamstring IL stint for each hamstring last year. So now the sprint speed's even down. So people can't even rely on that anymore, even though we do have an over-reliance on that. So that's the reason that I kind of end up out on him. I think he's still treated as a power speed guy, even though you're right, the price is down from previous years, but it's still a top 100 pick for a guy who is, power average and runs. And those are important. He can be good there. I'm advocating Jose Altuve, and his steals aren't guaranteed, and I don't think that you should bank on them, but he also has a better health outlook than Ketel Marte. I just don't feel like I end up with him. I'm not anti him. He's easy to root for. I really like him as a player. MLB The Show dweeb, I always talk about that, and Ketel Marte is great in that game, so I love him there. But in fantasy this year, I just don't think I'm going to have him. Too many other guys. This whole tier, I would take over him. I listed him last on purpose because he's the last guy for me in this tier.
And I would probably take every guy in the next tier over him too.
Let's go into that real quick because that's going to be a couple repeats we can gloss over. These are the triple eligibles, and we put LeMahieu and Cronenworth under fake first baseman last time out because I feel like they're probably best at second base, but maybe not. LeMahieu has first, second, third. Cronenworth has first, second, short. We talked about them. Check out the first base episode for more on them. But they are joined by Chris Taylor at pick 134, second, short, outfield, and Luis Urias. Welcome to the triple eligibles, second, third, and short. I don't feel like enough is being made of Luis Urias having triple eligibility. I really like him. I know our boy Willie Adames is getting a lot of love, and I'm part of banging that drum. But I think Luis Urias should be right there getting a lot of love. Let's start with Chris Taylor first, though, because LeMahieu and Cronenworth we've already done, and we're on a time limit. Chris Taylor had an amazing year. He's back with the Dodgers. Is he going to be great again? Is he just kind of a great player, or do you have any concerns after his breakout season? Or not really break. It was just another good season, but 2013 with a 254 average, 73 ribbies, 92 runs. How do you feel about Chris Taylor?
And I actually want to clarify or correct myself. I have Marte ranked above these guys, but I'll end up with them more often. This tier more often because they're going later. I think Chris Taylor has switched who he is in the fantasy sense. Because it used to be, man, if this guy could just get to 550 plate appearances, he'd be really good. We just had a hard time seeing where it was going to happen. Now he's got the plate appearances, and I'm a little worried about like the second half drop off in batting average. So
is it that swing and miss that has you concerned? Up to 29% strikeout rate. Swing and miss has always been kind of prevalent, and he's not really outrunning it now with the 254 average. You think there's more potential pain there?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some batting average downside that wasn't there before. That being said, like I do think like 2010 is probably doable for him in a really, really good lineup that he might hit towards the top because it's not as good as it usually is and could be worse if Max Muncy's not there. Now that could change if they sign like a Freddie Freeman, which might happen today or tomorrow if the CBA gets worked out. So I do like Taylor. He used to be the guy that was way underdrafted. Now I think he's appropriately drafted.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes even overdrafted.
Yep.
So
I think we're lockstep here. I don't even need to say anything because I'm with you 100% on Chris. Like, it's fine. If I wind up on him, it's okay. But I used to be excited to get him. And now it's like you're paying market value for a decent player on a great team. And that helps. All right, let's get to Urias then. Triple eligible, second, third, short. We love that. Broke out last year with 23 homers, 75 ribbies, 77 runs, 5 steals chipped in there, 249 average, little light, but only a 280 BABIP. I wonder if he can improve that, though. He has a 284 career, so it's not like he was well below his norms. I'm just wondering if there's any potential upside there because he doesn't strike out a ton. Great swinging strike rate at 9%, strikeout rate at 20%. I like all that. Is there more from Luis Urias here, or is he just going to kind of be this guy now for a couple of years? I mean, 25. Is he just a 20 homer, decent runs, ribbies, chip in steals, mediocre average type guy, or do you see potential growth from Luis Urias, and if so, from where does it come?
I do see some potential growth, but it's in batting average. It's not in power. It's not in speed. But I mean, he's a guy who has shown the ability to have pretty close to elite contact skills in the past. We saw him sell out a little bit for power, and so I wonder if the power maybe comes back down as the average goes back up and he becomes more of like a 15 homer guy, which I'm fine with considering he's triple eligible. I'd actually rather give back 5 home runs and have him hit 290.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Which I think is something that could be in the cards and in his profile. So he's a guy that I definitely want to get in drafts, especially for those of you in deeper leagues where the triple eligibility really, really plays up. So, being able to play pretty much the 3 positions that are two of the positions that are really shallow.
Yeah, right? The second and third.
Yeah, and outfield, right? Or no,
second, outfield. Third, and short. So it's short, obviously deep, but the other 2 aren't. And you just never know when you're going to use that flexibility with him. And I like that for Luis Urias. And I'll tell you what, I don't think you're wrong about maybe trading in some of the power for average, but I think you could just add the average and keep the 20 homers too. That's a plausible path as well. I think either could happen. I think at worst we're going to get a repeat or pretty close to, and I'm totally chill with that. It wouldn't be the best outcome because he costs more than where he finished last year. He was actually, interestingly, he was actually 20th. That season finished him 20th at second base there. But again, if that's a downside, if that's more of a floor, he's the 16th second baseman off the board. That's fine. But I really like Luis Urias. Definitely somebody that talked about way back when we saw him at the Arizona Fall League, and here he is now, really maturing and playing well. So I definitely like him. All right, the already discussed guys, Max Muncy, Ty France. We also discussed them on the first base. So let's move on to the solid, if unspectacular group. Ryan McMahon, Brendan Rodgers. Actually, Brendan Rodgers should have been in the established studs. He's a beast. Everyone loves him. Colton Wong, Gene Segura, Jonathan Scope, Eduardo Escobar, Enrique Hernandez. Now you guys know why it was called what it is, because those are all like, okay, cool. That's solid, but nobody's doing backflips for any of those guys. Does anybody tickle your fancy here, though? Maybe you're doing backflips for one of them. If so, who's your favorite of the solid, if unspectacular grouping?
I mean, I'm not doing backflips for any of them. I'm fine with most of them. I mean, I'm not a Rodgers guy.
Yeah, we don't have to beat that. Yeah, you guys can definitely listen to previous pods for that info.
I'm definitely avoiding Eduardo Escobar. I don't love where he ends up in terms of that lineup. It looks
with the Mets, by the way.
Yeah, with the Mets, it looks like he's gonna be hitting 7th or 8th. That park is one of the worst parks to hit in baseball. And he's not like an extreme power guy to begin with. So I wonder, like if he ends up being like a 15 homer guy, like I would not be surprised. And hitting at the bottom of a lineup, probably not great runs or RBIs either. And doesn't steal bases. So Escobar's a guy who I've liked a lot in the past. He's completely off my draft board pretty much at this point.
I'm agreement on a lot today here at second base because I'm you're spitting on that. I totally agree with you on all that with Escobar.
I like Ryan McMahon because he's dual eligible, but I think at this point
in Colorado, right? Like just in Colorado alone is good.
But at this point, I think he is who he is. Like I think we know what he's going to be. Colton Wong, I always love Colton Wong. Can he stay healthy? Can he stay on top of that lineup? Those are some questions, but I think while on a per plate appearance basis, especially if you're playing in a 10 or a 12 team league, he offers, some nice value because the replacement value on the wire is going to be really nice. So Gene Segura is always overlooked.
Love Gene Segura.
And
he's my favorite of this group. At the price, bang for buck, he goes 179 on average as the 22nd second baseman, and just atop that lineup. And it's not an amazing lineup, but it's not bad either. It dies out is the problem, but the guys right behind him are going to drive him in all day. Hoskins, Harper, Real Muto. We got no issues with any of those guys, so they're going to be putting Segura across the plate all day long.
I think they might be a front runner for Correa and Story too. Yeah. So if they were to add one of those guys, like he'd be even in an even nicer spot.
Or even like a Bryant, like an impact free agent, I think.
Yeah, I think they end up with a big bat. Segura is he's one of these you like to call him wide awake sleepers.
Yes.
Where like people are calling him a sleeper, but there's a lot of really sharp people in the industry who are just looking at him as like, hey, he's kind of free money at around pick 170.
Yeah. Just a great pickup that you put in. He was 14-9 last year in 131 games with 76 runs, 58 ribs. He's a double-double. I mean, he missed it by one steal last year, but he's pretty much a walking double-double, which is, double digits in homers and steals. Great batting average. Going to put some underrated runs in there too. Love Gene Segura. All right. Who else was in this group? Scope.
We talked about Scope last episode.
We know he's going to have a Scopening 1 month, 2 months out of the year. He's going to be a god. Bottom line, though, his numbers are going to be pretty much the same. I think we kind of covered this group here. Again, we've had 4 Brendan Rodgers discussions. Just look at his profile on Fangraphs and find those old podcasts if you really want our deep dive there. I love him. Justin does not. This class is well covered here. Let's go to the next class, and that's what they're called because they're the guys that are next up. Well, maybe not all of them. I included Garrett Hampson just because this was where he fit best. I don't really have a whole lot of hope for him to be better than he's been. But Josh Rojas, Gavin Lux, Andres Jimenez, Abraham Toro, Hampson, Nick Madrigal, Nico Horner, Ha-Seong Kim, and Nolan Gorman, who was position changed to second base because when they got Nolan Arenado, they're like, well, you're never a third baseman anymore, which I love, though. They were aggressive, and they know that Gorman is a great prospect. They want to get him up. Second base is his best avenue. This is an intriguing group, right? This is where you can find your middle or maybe a util that you think can be something bigger. Do you have a favorite here that you're like, this is my guy to really pop this year?
I mean, I like a lot of these guys.
I figured.
I'm a big Rojas guy. I've not given up on Gavin Lux at all.
Same.
Andres Jimenez, I think he is super underrated right now.
You were keen on him last year, right?
Yeah, I was. I
don't say that to diss, by the way. I'm saying that you're sticking with him, though.
It was a miss, but you look at what he did when he came up at the end of the year. Like, he was who we thought he could be.
He started to show those flashes again. So, and we're still talking about a literal 23-year-old this year. Yeah. So you were early on him, but there's no reason to fully be out if you liked him last year. I would say, if anything, you should stay bought in because the price is even cheaper now.
Absolutely. Abraham Toro, he's starting to get some helium. He may get overpriced here, but I like his situation in Seattle now that Seager's gone. I'm always going to fall for Garrett Hampson. It's just, I mean, I'm going to dream on that forever. Nick Madrigal's actually a guy that I've disliked in the past. I disliked last year. I felt like he was super overdrafted last year. And now he's going so late, he becomes somewhat interesting. And I think the way that Cubs lineup is set up, he could bat on top of it. I still don't think he's got like the burner speed that some other people do, but
why not just take Luis Arraez?
You can, but I think Madrigal's role is completely set, and I don't know that Arraez is.
That's fair. Arraez is triple eligible though too, so that could be a difference. But to your point, you're saying you don't think Madrigal is necessarily a burner, but he is faster than Arraez, and he should push for more SBs than Arraez. I was just saying the empty power batting average guy. They're about the same price, by the way. They actually go. Arraez goes right after Madrigal, 293 to 297.
Madrigal's going to play every day. There's a real legitimate shot he hits first or second in that order.
That's fair.
He could steal 15 bases with a really, really good average. And I saw him doing some field work. He looks like he's healthy and recovered from this season. He's been working this off season with Nico Horner. So
teammates now, by the way, if people forgot the Madrigal trade, he was with the White Sox. He's now with the other Chicago team.
So, and his, teammates on this list, his teammate I'm not as interested in, Nico Horner. I think in like a really deep league where you really want plate appearances, he becomes,
Horner's
usable.
Probably more Arraez than Madrigal because Horner doesn't, I don't know that he projects to really have the stolen bases, whereas Madrigal does have double-digit stolen base projections. So maybe that's the better comp is Horner to Arraez, and Madrigal maybe has a better upside than both of those guys, perhaps.
Yeah. And then you and I both have said repeatedly we're not out on Ha-Seong Kim,
especially now it's cheap as hell.
And now that there's a DH in the National League, I fully expect San Diego to be a really active team. They've been linked to a lot of potential trades, and I think they could actually open up more spots for him to play.
And he's triple eligible, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. There's power, there's speed in Ha-Seong Kim's profile. I believe that he will adjust. And I think we started to see it, even though the numbers don't show it. He looked a lot more comfortable at the plate in the last month and two of the season than he did earlier on.
Definitely.
And then Gorman, it's just a matter of when he's up. I think the player, maybe only Seth Beer benefited more from the DH coming to the National League than Nolan Gorman, because like you said, he was just absolutely blocked at first and third because of Arenado and Goldschmidt. I don't know that he's going to play a lot of second.
He's still pretty blocked there too, by the way. We just talked about Edmond, right? So it's not even a guarantee.
I think he's going to be the everyday DH once he's up, and I think he could be up very early. His bat is ready. And if the Cardinals say, "Hey, we look at this division as poachable," we just added Steven Matz. There's a talk that they're going to add a big bullpen piece at some point and really screw your Gallego shares. I think
such a waste of resource. I'm not just saying that because I love Gallegos. Like that's the last thing that they need. But okay. I mean, you can never have too much pitching. I know.
I don't disagree with you, but this is what the rumor is. So, I think Gorman.
You're just reporting.
I think Gorman could be a really special player. It would not surprise me if Gorman outproduced Bobby Witt Jr. I'm not going to say he will,
but it wouldn't surprise you.
Wouldn't surprise me.
2-level season for Gorman last year. He ripped up Double-A with 11 homers and a 288 average, 129 WRC plus for 195 plate appearances. They called him up to Triple-A. He came down a bit. It was a 106 WRC plus, but as a 21-year-old holding your own in AAA with 14 homers in 328 plate appearances, I mess with that. So that's 25 homers over the full season in 119 games. That's really nice. So I'm with you on the Gorman call out
and 7 stolen bases. Like he's not like
threw in
zero
some steals too.
Yeah. So and
7 for 7 at that too.
Yep, the batting average is good. He's got good contact skills. AAA, he only struck out 19% of the time. Like he made that jump and then lowered his strikeout rate from AA to AAA. So I love Gorman a lot. The question is, do you want to roster a player that you don't know when he's going to be up? Because he should be up at the end of April, but because of the way the Cardinals are built, they don't need to bring him up.
They really don't.
And so there is some risk that he just sits in AAA
until the summer.
Until the summer. So I think you have to kind of bake that in. He will be a Fabapalooza guy when he comes up. The question is when.
Definitely. A great call out and a lot of great stuff there on all those guys that you like. I'm with you. Love Gavin Lux, Ha-Seong Kim. We're not quitting him. Josh Rojas, I've tempered it a little bit, but I still can't fully quit him. Haven't been as aggressive as I was because there are some issues there. But he did fine in his first full season. He was a 102 OPS plus, 11 homers, 9 steals. I think the price is fair. So that's the thing. It's even if you're not super keen on Josh Rojas, with the price, it's hard to be like, oh, this is terrible. He's 225 pick, triple eligible. I think it's just fine. But I have officially quit Garrett Hampson, so you can have that one. Good luck. The dude just cannot hit, and that's with playing half his games in the best park this game has ever seen. And since 2019, he has 1,005 plate appearances of a 65 WRC plus.
Yeah, and he's not a good hitter, but he plays in Colorado.
I know.
Now that he's old, he's going to play every day. Yeah. He went from we're not going to play him in his prime to what is he, like 29 or something like
27.
that?
He's
27.
Not even that old yet.
Yeah, it just feels like he's been around forever. So
and listen, I'm somebody who says that the WRC plus penalty for Colorado is a little too robust for only to be a 65, but it's still a 675 OPS. So even if you don't want to go off the WRC plus, the bottom line is he can't hit. It's blind speed. Yep.
Yeah, it's late cheap speed as a kind of you don't have a lot of other options, because he could easily steal 25 bases.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, the MIs: Cesar Hernandez, Luis Arraez, Jeff McNeil, Adam Frazier, David Fletcher, Nick Solak, Josh Harrison, Tony Kemp, Tommy La Stella. A lot of sameness here. Give me a guy or two you like here as we're running up against the clock on these MIs at second base.
I guess Cesar Hernandez.
I knew you were going to say him because I agree. He hit 20 homers last year, and he's going to play in Washington. So cool.
This is the drop off at second base. I don't want any of these guys. I don't. What
do you make of what Tony Kemp did last year, though? I know, age 29 is not the best year for a breakout. He was excellent, though. He walked more than he struck out. 279, 382, 418, 8 homers, 8 steals in 397 plate appearances. Should play a ton in Oakland. I'm actually kind of okay with Tony Kemp.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to play every day. I don't think he's particularly good. He'll probably accumulate more than people are expecting just because he might get to like 650 plate appearances in Oakland.
That would be the dream. I think he is pretty good, though. I mean, you walk more than you strike out. He's always had great plate skills. I don't know. There might be a little something there.
Yeah, I mean, considering where he's going, he's fine. Double-digit homers, maybe double-digit stolen bases.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, nothing crazy.
Yeah, someone on Twitter was all like, he's the next Cedric Mullins. That's my bold prediction. And and he said it in a thread with Scott Jenstead and Vlad Sedler, and I said, "How dare you compare Tony Kemp to Cedric Mullins? I think you must have meant like prime Matt Kemp."
But what was Cedric Mullins's outlook last year? Right, it was the
His
same
outlook was beautiful because I saw into the future.
Just stop memeing for a second. He was that shitty though, right? Like the difference there is the 3 years of age. Like, Tony Kemp's gonna be 30. You don't usually see a 30-30 breakout from a 30-year-old or anything like that. But in terms of how people viewed Cedric Mullins last year, when you were pumping him up, they're like, who's this guy? He's played 48 games in 2020. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. I don't think Tony Kemp is this year's said, but go look at those plates. We usually go crazy for plate skills like this. And he finally put something together. It took till age 29. He's not really had many opportunities. I don't know. I'm kind of on the Tony Kemp train a little bit there.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
If I told you he had 8 barrels, would you believe me?
If that Tony Kemp had 8 barrels, I would probably say that's more than he had.
That's what he's had for his career.
Oh my God. Okay. That's fine. Like, I don't need him to have a lot of power though.
Yeah.
Honestly, what I'm looking for, I'll take another 8 homers. Give me upwards of 20 steals with the good slash line and a shit ton of runs on that team. Because even though that we don't like that team and we think they are going to dismantle it a bit, if he leads off every day, Tony Kemp does, with the skills that he has, he can score 90 runs.
I think his homers and stolen base upside is probably something like 715, which is fine where he's going.
He hit like 8 in 397 plate appearances last year, you bastard.
I don't believe that is sustainable. I think he got super lucky. 8 barrels over his career, and he had
7% homer to fly ball rate.
Yeah.
Nah, you're full of shit.
Because none of his homers are ever going over that fence.
He was already on Oakland. Like, you're arguing against something that already happened and acting like it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. I don't believe it happened. I'm gonna go and watch. He hit 6 of his homers on the road.
Great. He's gonna play road games this year, believe it or not.
I don't believe he will.
The Chaff, the Wilmer Flores, Edmundo Sosa, Ramon Urias, who is related to Luis, Rougned Odor, Dylan Moore, Luis Garcia, Lurie Garcia, Zach McKinstry, and John Birdie. Pick 2, and that's it, because this is the Chaff. Not good.
Edmundo Sosa, I think, has a full-time role to start off the season. So I think that he's somewhat interesting as a guy who can get some plate appearances. Rougned Odor probably has a full-time role
to
start the season. Lurie Garcia definitely has a full-time role to start the season, and multi-positional eligible. Those are the guys that...
I think I lied. Ramon Urias and Luis Urias are not related. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's ancillary to what we're talking about here. I thought they were related. I'm a dumbass. Oh, no, he is. Okay, Baseball Reference doesn't have it right. I had it right. Baseball Reference does it. I'm a genius. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I can't quit Zach McKinstry. He doesn't really have a playing time role in LA, but I still think there's talent there.
If Muncy's out, he could.
Exactly. And I do like Ramon Urias a little bit. This guy sucks. Like, he strikes out way too much. But Dylan Moore, if he gets playing time, like, there's an avenue. But anyway, my radio spot's calling me right now, so we do have to get going. But third base, next time out, I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.